We're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moving Towards a Peaceful Future session. I'm happy to welcome you to this online space. Looking for promising ideas, and before we start the conversation, and while waiting for everyone to join, I would kindly ask you maybe to share in the chat where you're calling from, and second question, what one word comes to your mind when you think about peace? What is the first association that comes to you when you think about peace? I will repeat that in the chat. And while we're waiting for your answers, and I will try maybe to read some, I wanted to highlight that in order to celebrate the International Day of Education, yesterday UNESCO held a day of dialogue on education of peace at the New York, at the headquarters of United Nations. So I think this is kind of the intro that I wanted to bring, that peace is becoming the central and crucial part, an issue that we need to talk about. And earlier today, during the Youth Talk session, there was a survey that concerned 45,000 young people over the world, and it was shown that peace is #1 topic that young people are thinking about. So in order to start the session, I would be really happy to introduce you to Pavel Luksha, my co-host and co-moderator of the session, who is the founder of Global Education Futures and co-founder of the Weaving Lab and Living Cities Earth, and a fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. His work connects future visioning and system transformation across various sectors, including education, peace building. So I will let Pavel open and set the mood. Pavel, please.
Thank you, Ilia, and welcome everyone again. And I think some people are transiting from a previous session on Planetism and University, where we were exploring the dreams of youth about the new models of education in service of humanity and in service of our planet. And I think it's very clear that we are in the moment where we need to learn for different things. We need to learn things that really will ensure our flourishing futures. And perhaps most of our education models are not doing good job of supporting us in this collective endeavor. Today we're going to have two parts of our conversation to explore how to make it possible, how we can put education in service of peaceful futures. And the first part will be explored together with four wonderful panelists, and I'll introduce them shortly. But all of them are doing amazing work, cutting edge work in terms of using education to bring peace on the regional and global scale. And in the second part of our conversation, we'll engage all of you in the exploration of what is possible, because we hope that this year, Learning Planet Institute, Global Education Futures, and a number of partners will be able to launch a program that will support young people, young leaders across the globe in making their local communities more peaceful and establishing what we can call positive peace. So that will be the second part of our collective conversation. But let me first introduce some of the premises of where we, so to say, look at this question from. So is peaceful futures a real dream that we can aspire for? First of all, if we look at the state of the world, the last 2 years have been really challenging this dream significantly. We now see some of the major conflicts, and I'm not only talking about Israel and Palestine and Ukraine and Russia, but there are more than 50 conflicts happening around the globe right now, some of them involving tens of thousands of people, bringing death to tens of thousands of people in these conflicts. So this we are the wars never stopped, actually, and we continue to experience devastating effects of that. And what is really concerning is that discussions about World War III again started to become part of the actual agenda. So something that brings the flavor of Cold War era, with the use of potential use of thermonuclear weapons and many other things that really jeopardized the future back then. And that is actually, to me, is a more of a subject, a priority subject, and perhaps many of conversation that talk about, for instance, R&D collaboration. Because how can you have a global R&D collaboration in a warring society? So the collective economic and social thriving really depends, really conditional on presence of peace in the world. And looking into the future, looking into various risks ahead of us, one of significant risks that everyone are concerned with is climate changes and how this is going to affect global population. More than 2 billion people are going to be affected in the next several decades. And that is a really, let's say, gives a lot of potential for conflicts rising and spreading all over the globe, and many of the densely populated areas over critical resources such as water and soil. And we have to remember that wars today are becoming much more dangerous, much more threatening than they used to be 100 years ago, with not only with continuing proliferation of nuclear weapons, but also with increased applications of autonomous military robotics, of cyber attacks that can ruin social civic infrastructure, and even the use of AI for what some people call mind hacking, the hacking of collective perspectives, values, and culture. So there's lots of risks that are very present. And the question, will we survive 21st century and beyond? Will we thrive on this planet? Will we see the planet as flourishing? It depends on whether we are able to make wars obsolete. So I really like this quote from Buckminster Fuller that says either war is obsolete or humans are. And I think this is what could be our guiding beacon for the future. But at the same time, when we think about the potential of civic society to block or stop wars, especially in the moment when wars are already in the full-fledged, as we see in the situations in Ukraine or Israel, it's very hard to actually do anything about it. So the question, how can we create conditions that are able to prevent wars? Because preventing potential conflicts actually is easier than dealing with the conflicts that are in the full-fledged, with all interests already vested and all, let's say, the tensions present. So learning how to create, produce peace and make that into lasting peace, I think that has to be one of really key questions for our collective futures. And the first idea that I think we need to cultivate is that we need to accept that possibility of presence of peace in our life, of world without wars, of the lasting peace that actually is lasting forever, the peace-based civilization. And that was the question that we explored in our collective journey that involved various types of people, not only future scholars, but also diplomats, trauma healing specialists, artists, young voices from more than 40 countries in 2 previous years, exploring, is it possible to move to peaceful futures? And what we have discovered is that moving to peaceful futures actually is a collective endeavor. It cannot be left in the hands of politicians, big business, foundations. It needs to become everybody's concern and a cultural shift that happens on the grassroots level. And maybe that's obvious to those people that are working with peace building, but many people think that peace is something that is a job of diplomats. They just take it for granted. But it's everybody's business, and how to make it into that transition, it actually requires much more than just conflict resolution work. It also requires strengthening the democratic institution and creating the deep democracy that, for instance, involves young voices and voices of indigenous population in decision-making system on a constant level, because these are the groups that don't want war to happen. It needs to bring new models of economy that are regenerative, that are connected with the life-affirming processes of our planet. It needs to heal the roots of violence, including intergenerational trauma. So there's a lot of different works, different dimensions of work that can bring and will bring peaceful futures to all of us. And I would like to say that when we discuss what sustainable development goals are looking into, the transition to sustainable and thriving futures, actually we should see transition to peace-based civilization as an integral part of that. So regenerative futures, ecosystemic participatory models of our society come hand in hand with creating peace-based and love-based society. And this was the conclusion of our project. And now the question is, how can we make a kind of cultural revolution or counter-revolution, if we look at some of the tendencies, to make this a reality? And I think that these words from Martin Luther King are as, let's say, relevant today as they were 50 years ago when they were first expressed. He said that we must see that peace represents a sweeter music, a cosmic melody that is far superior to the discords of war. So how can we shift from what Martin Luther King called peace race instead of arms race or war race is perhaps the key question for all of us today. And with that, I'll stop my presentation and would like to introduce four panelists with whom we will explore this in our conversation today. All of you are doing incredible work, like I've already said, in making this into our reality. So we have today with us Candice Mama, who is the head of Kindness Economics AIME, Australian Indigenous Mentoring Experience, an amazing project. We just had a presentation from Jack, who is the founder of this, but I think it's one of the most incredible mentoring networks I have encountered. And Candice, you are also among the Vogue magazine most inspiring women. And I hope we will also all experience that together with Nicole Kidman, Michelle Obama, Malala, and many others. So welcome, and we hope to listen to your work on peace building that was recognized by the General Secretary of UN and Norwegian Prime Minister. And I'll turn to three other panelists. So we have Catalina Cock Duque, a good friend, and she is the co-founder and president of Misangri Foundation. She's an expert in catalyzing systemic change with over 25 years of experience. A young global leader, named a young global leader by World Economic Forum, a Ashoka Fellow and a Synergus Fellow, and in the list of 100 transformative women of the world. Welcome, Catalina, and your work, I think, comes from deeply from heart, and what you do is so amazing. So again, looking forward to what you will have to say. And two equally incredible men are Aart Bos, who is a global leader and masterpiece, dedicated more than 12 years of building peace and togetherness around the world, with masterpiece working in over 40 countries around the world, where innovative projects and campaigns to address local challenges disrupting peace have been implemented. Welcome, Aart. And last but not least, Mandar Apte, co-founder and executive director of Cities for Peace, a worldwide expert on transformative social impact and conflict resolution, who pioneers the work on local peace building through business collaborations in places like Los Angeles, cities of India, and beyond. Welcome, welcome, and let's turn to the questions that we will discuss today. And my first question to you, colleagues, it will be the same. But I think we all share passion for peace. But what is peace for you, and how does it manifest? How do you manifest this understanding in your projects? Candice, maybe we could begin with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Pavel. And I'm in such esteemed company, including everyone that's here to listen to some of our opinions on how we define peace. And I think peace is an interesting concept at large because it doesn't have one definitive statement. It means equality. It means internal healing. It means communities that can live in a cohesive way. And for me, when I think around the concepts of peace, I realize that until we get people to have internal peace and we bring them from that place of constant conflict that they feel they need to act in a particular way, it is going to be harder to build a more peaceful world, because for each and every person, there's a responsibility, as you said in your presentation, which was so beautiful. And I see it so much in my country. I know Catherine is from South Africa too, but we are just 30 years into a peaceful democracy, as people would say. And what that has stemmed from is we've got so many people who are willing to move forward in a peaceful way, but they're carrying their wounds. And when people carry their wounds, they will inflict more damage as we move forward. So the work that I focus on doing is helping organizations, countries, policies inform a way of us moving forward while people are healing, while people are being acknowledged, because I don't believe that there can be a peaceful world until we address what people have experienced in the past. So I think the two worlds live side by side.
Thank you, Candice. Catalina, what is peace to you? How do you see it?
Thank you, Pavel, and hello, everyone. I guess I'll start by saying that I come from Colombia. So I grew up in a country where violence and social fractures were a part of our reality. So when talking about peace, we talk about a culture of peace, referring to a set of values, of attitudes, and actions that reflect respect for life in all its forms, for human beings and their dignity. It also obviously includes the rejection of violence and the promotion of love, equity, freedom, diversity, and shared responsibility. I resonated very much with your introduction, Pavel. It's a responsibility of every citizen and very different levels, and it actually connects also the individual dimension with the collective. And I think it's important to mention that we not only recognize, but actually value the existence of conflicts, but we make a lot of emphasis in creating creating transformative ways of creating peaceful coexistence. And I'll talk a little bit of the work we do. For 17 years now, we've been unlocking young people's potential to contribute to more peaceful and inclusive societies. And we've developed a model based on learning ecosystems. For us, the process of learning is really important, but ensuring that it is not only within schools, but through all the actors that influence in one way or another the existence or the experience of young people. So within schools, we train teachers and support them in the implementation of programs that use arts and culture to develop social-emotional skills and key skills to become peace builders and change makers in their own communities. In communities, we have two different programs, one towards emergent leaders and one towards a more consolidated. Throughout the three programs, we have like a very simple algorithm that works really well. And it's starting with the connection to the self. And of course, there's a lot of work on healing. Candice, you're very right. We need to approach healing of trauma and collective trauma as well if we want to move forward, but also a connection to the self. And there's like an element of spirituality there, of connecting to herself and to something bigger, then connecting to others and to the surroundings, and finally creating a peace solution, change makers to whatever resonates with them in terms of peace building. So it can be issues around inclusion and diversity. It can be issues about conflict resolution and peaceful coexistence, and many others. For the past, the leadership for the program for consolidated young leaders was a response to the low turnout in the plebiscite for a peace agreement between the Colombian government and the oldest guerrilla group in Colombia. We had a real low turnout. So we said we need to move from community actions, because there were initiatives like creating a hip-hop school to promote peaceful coexistence and to prevent risks in the streets, or that kind of initiatives, more at the community level and at the school level. So we thought we need to move a step further. We need to awaken the passion for politics and public issues in a wider range. So this program has an emphasis in giving them the tools to influencing key decision makers and actually to become elected as well. We recently have a young girl from one of the poorest towns in Colombia, very affected by violence, by the armed conflict, and she became elected as a mayor. So I'll sum up by saying that our program or our model includes 4 elements: developing extraordinary leaders or peace builders and giving them the tools to become change makers. Second, supporting both technically and financially in the creation of these initiatives. Thirdly, creating mobilization campaigns and to all build up from the bottom up with young people, but to shift paradigms around key issues around peace building, beginning with the role of young people who are usually seen in countries like mine either as victims or perpetrators, or at the best as passive actors. So positioning the role in change making and peace building is really critical, but also denaturalizing violence or naturalizing mental health issues and issues around trauma. So communications is really, really important in our work and mobilization campaigns. And finally, weaving ecosystems, because as we were evolving in our programs and seeing how young people, we've impacted already 2 million people, we saw that it was never enough, and we could accelerate change by bringing different actors together. And for instance, in a region that's been very, very affected by war, and especially war, violence against women, we work together with the police, with the church, with young leaders, with school educators, public servants, government officials, to co-design collective initiatives to prevent violence against women. And I think I'll stop to respect the times of others, but the results are very tangible and with a systemic approach that I think transforms culture and mindsets and empowers not only young people, but people surround them to take action towards peace.
Thank you. Very impressive work. Thank you, Catalina. And I'm sure a lot of people would be keen to learn from you how to do it. Art, Masterpiece also does a lot of work around many regions. So what is your focus in peacemaking?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Pavel, and all the other friends. I'm having problems with my internet access, so now and then I'm out. But to answer the question, peace is in our brand. So the peace, and I consider, can you still hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead. I think everything works.
Okay. So peace is in our brand, but peace doesn't mean the absence of war, but the presence of all what Catalina said before, the access to opportunities, the access to quality education and all the stuff. 12 years ago, I joined Masterpiece, and at that moment I said, the urgency has never been higher before. I'm afraid I have to repeat this again with all the climate data that you showed already, Pavel. Where are we now? So the urgency is so high, we cannot afford to be a bystander on one hand. On the other hand, there is my deep belief that we have 8 billion talents, not 8 billion issues. So my start is at the trust and the belief we can create a sustainable future with less conflict. That's a deep belief. I don't doubt about that. And
I think we have the cut down.
your biggest enemy can become your best friend. Can you still hear me? Because I see a frozen screen.
Yes, you were blocked for a moment, but please continue. Now we can hear you. Not really.
Okay. So the whole we organize in masterpiece. Our theory of change is
All right, maybe you can turn your video
self-esteem
off
to create connection.
to increase the bandwidth.
Maybe he can turn his video off, then we try and see if we could hear
Connect,
him.
empower.
Art?
Maybe invite Amanda for the time being, Pavel, and we'll
Yes,
try
I
to
think
get
it's
back
a good
with-
idea. Yeah, but I really like the statement of having 8 billion talents, not 8 billion issues. I think it's a beautiful framing. And Mandar, I know you also operate from a framing like this. So can you share your approach? And maybe in the meantime, Art will be able to solve this issue.
So thank you for organizing, and thank you for everybody in the midst of the global turbulence. You are showing up. That's the first sign of a human life, I think, is to show up when there is a need. I feel like we have all been frustrated and angry and upset and sad. I'm assuming that's a shared experience. Is that correct? Whenever I have been in those states, I have never said to myself, yes, I finally got frustrated. I'm so happy to be angry. Right? Whenever I'm in those states, I feel I need a timeout. I need to be with myself. I need to be quiet. That gives a clue to what is peace. Peace is our nature. Peace is our reality. Peace is why we go to work. Peace is why we earn money and have children and go to movies. So that nature, we have to come back to our nature until it is established that, my negative emotion is just like a line on water. So peace is, I would say, the fundamental birthright of every human being is to learn how to come back to your nature. And sometimes people ask me, like, Maslow's hierarchy begins with food, clothing, and shelter. You need that to be peaceful. And I say back that, hey, that's a Western framework. I don't need to agree to it. Because I know so many people in my country, India, who don't have anything, but they will share their meal with you. So that's where, we have to rethink and reimagine peace is our fundamental nature. And that means, what do we need to learn? We need to learn how to manage our negative emotion. What do I do when I'm frustrated? What do I do when I'm sad, when I'm unhappy, not contented? People say, don't get angry, Mandar, it's okay, it will just pass. But Mandar is angry. So that's where the Cities for Peace program is fundamentally based in providing education on how to manage your negative emotions using a universal science that every emotion in our mind is connected with a breathing pattern. And as soon as the emotion changes, your breathing pattern has also changed. So by educating ourselves that my breath, which I take for granted, how can I use it to connect back with my nature, right? That doesn't mean you will never be angry, because then you are a robot. But you can learn how to disassociate anger, making a slave out of you. Showing angry is absolutely necessary. Fighting against injustice is absolutely necessary. But you're not bearing discontentment in your heart. Because finally, if you want to, stop injustice, you have to work with people who are being unjust. And so you will need to create a space where they are also coming to a dialogue with you. So in my work, in our work, we don't take a side like blue lives matter, black lives don't matter, black lives matter, red lives don't matter. We take a position for peace. We take a position for love. We take a position for unconditional love. because love is also conditional, right? Sometimes I say, okay, I'm not going to wish Candice birthday because she never wishes birthday back to me, right? So that love has a condition. And so how can we move from violence to unconditional love? I think that is the journey we have to start. It gets into a spiritual realm, but that is what India and the role of India today must be, is to remind people that we are not just a physical body. If we were only physical body, we will not get tired. The dinner table doesn't get tired and say, I need to sleep. So there is a spirit, there is some energy with you that gets tired, that feels sad. How do you uplift yourself? I think that is where we need to access that power, the consciousness within, whatever you call it. And the breath is that link, yeah? So that is a little bit about my understanding of peace.
Art. Sorry, Mandar. Art, can you connect? Can you hear us? So
I can connect. I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So maybe you'll finish briefly your statement and we'll move to the second round of our conversation.
So my deep belief is that there are 8 billion talents, and we work in 40 countries with youngsters, and they do amazing work, provided that they are taken serious by their peers, by the governments, etc. But I believe in the power of youngsters, and I talk to so many who are doing amazing small steps. So I believe in the grass organization to be a driver of transformation towards a more peaceful future. And that requires engagement, like Catalina said, with using art, connecting and empowerment. And then education is a condition sine qua non, informal and non-formal education.
Thank you, Art. So I think we have a spectrum of approaches. And with that, I would like to move to invite a second question, which maybe will also you use as a springboard to elaborate your approach to peace. So this is actually the question that relates to the issue we explore in this meeting today. Is transition to peaceful futures possible? Because we can hear around us a very different perspective, which says that wars were always there, will always be there. So it's futile to hope that we will transcend wars. And some even say, and that's what we are going to discuss in the session after this one, in the one, Are Conflicts Necessary? Some even say that war is a necessary part of human nature. We cannot do without it, not only because it's historically determined, but because without it, culture won't develop. So that is one perspective. But there is also another perspective, which I find extremely inspiring, which says that in order to transit to the next stages of human evolution, and different people that were exploring this throughout 20th and 21st century are really very adamant on this. We really need to learn peace. We need to be in a different shape. We need to change our perspective on the world and stop this conflicting nature of ours in order to really become truly human. So these are two, let's say, polar perspectives. And I would like to invite each of you to express your opinion. In case you think peaceful futures is possible, and is possible perhaps within this century, what actually drives it? Why we can hope for it? And if not, what are the key obstacles? What prevents us from getting into peaceful futures? Candice, what do you think about this?
Firstly, all the conversation has been so enlightening, Pavel, and I've been taking mental notes, so I'm going to need this recording afterwards. But when you speak of hope, I think it's so important as human beings to realize and recognize that hope is the oxygen that moves human beings forward. Without hope, we cease to be. So should we always be hopeful for a peaceful future? Of course, or else we wouldn't do the work that we do. We wouldn't trust and empower the youth and different kinds of organizations to do the work they do. I think when we ask the question, can we have a peaceful future after war? South Africa is an incredible case study for that, right? It did what the world deemed to be the impossible. We went from being oppressed one day, and the next day we were living side by side, moving into different neighborhoods. And it's one of the only countries in the world that has transitioned without a civil war ensuing right afterwards. The reason I transitioned into the work of peace is because apartheid was only 30 years ago. My dad was killed 30 years ago. And so to me, it was a reasonable direction to take after I found my own internal peace. And I think I could not, amplify what Mandar does and says more, because so often we're looking at the world outside us. We're looking at politicians. We're looking at governmental institutions to provide us with peace. What we don't realize is what the world is created to do is to profit a capitalist system, as you stated in the beginning of your presentation. And the only way that capitalism continues to thrive is when the narrative me versus you continues to be strong. All the isms, sexism, racism, any of the isms, homophobia, all of those things come from division. And division can only be sown when people are living in fear. Because the only reason you would put someone over there is because you're afraid of what you do not understand about that person or that thing. And you have been told that that personal thing is a threat to your identity. And so to me, the work that needs to be done in order to have a peaceful future is to bring people out of the state of fear. It is to help people control their own emotions, because the one thing I teach and that I've had to learn is that whatever controls our emotions will control our lives. If I say to you right now, Pavel, you are stupid. If you internally believe you're stupid, you are going to be tossing and turning about it all night and thinking, how did you know I was stupid? Did I say something stupid? Am I? But if you have faith in the work that you do and evidence around you shows you that you are not stupid, you are going to be like, it's going to be like water off a duck's back. However, what tends to happen is we go around the world adopting people's energies and adopting the identities, and that's what puts us in fear. So in order for us to even start transitioning to a peaceful future, I think all of us need to take control of our own internal worlds and say that change does not start out there. As much as everyone on this call is incredible and doing amazing work, the peace needs to start in your home. Are you okay with your wife or husband or partner? Are you treating your kids in a peaceful environment? Are you experiencing peace in your community? And do you bring peace to the table? Because I think sometimes what tends to happen is, especially in the work that we do, we pour so much of ourselves out there. We can be on these calls, we can be inspirational and amazing, and people tell us how great we are. And then we go back home and we do not bring peace into our own homes. And so until that can change and all of us can accept that peace begins within, peace begins with me. And before I can go and fill up anyone else's cup around me, I need to be willing to fill up my own cup. And so when it comes to a global context, it is then, how do we eradicate the need to be responsive? Because what social media, unfortunately, is perpetuating at this time is, you have to be black or white. You have to choose a stance. You have to have an enemy, and the enemy always has to be out there. What do we do in our own contexts and worlds to say, no, I'm not going to engage in this violence? Because that's what's happening today. You are seeing it with every conflict, whether it's Russia and Ukraine, Palestine and Israel. We have lost the ability to have these kind of conversations in a space where people are respecting one another's opinions, where anyone on this call could look at me and say, Candice, thank you for that, but I don't agree. And they can challenge me intellectually and we can have a conversation. And I think for as long as we continue to put the barriers to communication to the other, whatever we consider the other to be, the world is going to continue moving in the direction it is. So to summarize my answer really quickly, it's number one, your own internal emotions. Learn how to be the person who controls that. Bring peace into your intimate environment, into the community you surround yourself with, and make sure that when you're entering the world and doing all this incredible work that everyone on this call does, that you're pouring from a full cup and that you're not depleting yourself, because so many peace builders end up doing so. So I'll keep quiet to give everyone else an opportunity.
No, you should keep talking. That's the power we need. So
yeah, I very much resonate with you with all your words and smiles. We have to remember that peace building is a verb. It needs to take action. So the bottom is we need to have hope. When you don't have hope, everything is lost. But then it takes action on a grassroots level. And that is, we have to realize that we have more in common than what separates us. We always emphasize what is different, but it is 99% the same. Also physically, we have so much in common. And that is the common ground to work towards, let's say, the I, the other, and society, the three levels that is mentioned before.
Mm-hmm. Is that what gives you hope, Aart, for peaceful futures?
Yeah, and let's say, I always say I have the best job in the world, because when you have two types of glasses, there is a lot going very well. There are many great initiatives, and we can learn from each other, but our like-minded, we are excellent in working next to each other, but not with each other. I think we have to mobilize the silent majority, because the silent majority is now overwhelmed by the negatives. And we have a countervailing power of positive power. And that is my hope and my trust and my day and night work. So it's a combination of rationale and emotion.
Thank you. And that is, to me, a hope for a movement that we are also hopefully are building together. I want to, we're already kind of turning a little bit the order, so maybe I'll ask Mandar and then Catalina to conclude, to share your perspective. Mandar, I think you're also sharing a lot with what Candice was talking about, the inner peace as a starting point of it all. But do you believe—
Pavel?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm in the airport and I'm about to be—
All right,
so
then we'll keep that order. Okay, it's
sorry
all emerges.
for that.
Catalina, then you go.
Sorry for that, and
thank you for being with us.
No, so happy and so inspiring, and I would love to follow up because I'm sure there's a lot of potential for collaboration and to accelerate learning as well. Of course, I know it's a complex and challenging goal, a peaceful future for everyone, but we need to believe it's possible and we need to continue finding ways. We say constantly in My Sangre, it's actually in a big wall when you enter. In times of crisis, hope is a must. And it's the fuel that keeps us going. And although there are many obstacles, including the still dominant paradigm of evolution, of development, which is too focused on economic growth, and that certainly creates deep inequalities, but it also helps self-interest to dominate rather than collective well-being. Resource scarcity would be another big challenge coming in the, well, it's starting to happen already. So there's many obstacles, but there's a lot to be done. And I see a growing number of people contributing and organizations contributing towards this. And I think learning is certainly a key element, like new ways of learning, ensuring that the new generations that come not only have stronger socio-emotional skills, have higher empathy, conflict resolution skills, abilities to collaborate, self-awareness, capacity to listen. All these is super important for peace building, and obviously agency, because you were talking about fear, and of course it's paralyzing and sometimes it dominates society. Love is an antidote, but also agency, the sense that we can transform realities. No project is small. Even working at the school level, at the community level, it adds up and it creates a movement, a positive movement towards peace building. I think inner work, inner development, trauma healing. I just shared a piece I wrote recently because I think it's a key element as well. Not only healing, that we've talked a little bit about that, but also growing our awareness or understanding of oneness, or the beautiful African word, I am because you are. And that can only be learned through experience, not only through cognitive processes, but creating transformative experiences that allows us to feel that deep connection and understanding that no one can thrive if others don't thrive. So connection to nature, to arts, moments of silence. These simple rituals need to become part of our quotidianity. I think we're getting too obsessed with artificial intelligence and getting quickly to our objectives, and we're forgetting that essential element of human experience that I believe needs to continue being cultivated. Of course, there's other dimensions that are not necessarily part of my work, but I think the international organizations and the way they're arranged need to be rethought, need to be thought again. They're not responding to actual realities and the way the world is functioning today. But yeah, I'll finish saying that at Misangre, and when I see you here and when we're listening to what you're doing at the global level as well, we would love to continue exploring new ways and expanding what we're doing and learning from others, of course, because we really envision, and we use this word on purpose, mobilizing a global army of peace building, catalyzing transformation in the lives of millions through planetary healing, consciousness, and interconnectedness. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Beautiful.
I mean, what can you say, Pavel? These are strong women here. So we are just I'm just in awe, like what Candice and Catalina have said. I will just add one dimension that I bring from my corporate experience. So I spent about 2 decades working in the belly of the beast at a small oil company called Shell. And I was the head of innovation at Shell. So it allowed me to, experiment, network, whatever benefits, privileges you can call them. So I started thinking few years ago that, violence has a business model. So think about like child trafficking. It's so yucky, but people do it because somebody makes money. Selling drugs on campuses. People are making money. These wars that media is blasting day and night, there's a business model to it, right? So I started thinking about, can I counter it using the business of peace? So can I make peace profitable? And that is one dimension that I will say is part of my work. In addition to the Ubuntu and inner peace and healing the trauma, meditation, breathing, nature walks, all this is great. But the people who are promoting that peace need prosperity as well, right? Otherwise, it doesn't hold, it doesn't sustain. So that's where we have to challenge the businesses that we are supporting, the grocery stores, the shopping stores, the airlines, because we are all in it together. Any type of violence is going to affect. And so we just have to play that game. And if anybody here is interested in collaborating in finding that business case for peace, because if you find it, it's there. Right? All we need is that intention. So I think that is the only thing I will add to these two powerful women that have spoken is the business case for peace. And it's right there. I invested in my work while I was at Shell. I invested in a peace building program. I invested, so I know that it's there. So and finally, one more thought I had is the connector, the role of the connector, like Alexander Laszlo. He connected me to his LCE group. Pavel, you have connected me with these, 2 women and these amazing people that are on here. That role of the connector is so important. So I appreciate everybody here, and yeah, it's humbling to know everybody here.
Pavel, can I add to these words on the business model?
Yes, please, and then we'll shift to the next stage, because I really want to make sure that we hear more voices from this amazing group that is here with us today. Yes, please, Art.
So when we talk with the youngsters, they always have two options. Let's say there is the options of the drugs cartels, of making money with drugs or trafficking or whatever, and they are less educated, less privileged, and they choose the option of money. So indeed, there has to be a new perspective, which is related to business model, personal business model. They have to have, let's say, alternative routes. And education and creating jobs and creating perspective is one answer. That is their personal business model, which is a more peaceful business model. So we work with grassroots on the local level with youngsters, and they don't see other options now and then, and they choose, in my perception, the wrong option, the wrong business model. So we have to create alternative routes, which might call business model.
I think it really connects to the conversation we had before that, is how do we awaken the potential of planetizens, which is about actually making it into a new kind of personal business model or jobs or ways of living, and collective business models. So kind of how do we, for example, make nature restoration part of a new economy? How do we make peace part of the new economy? So these are essential questions. Thank you, everyone. And before transiting, I would like us to maybe pause for 10 seconds and really let everything that was just expressed settle in, because there was a lot of discussion that we need to cultivate these pauses, this inner peace within us. So let this sink, and let's pause and then move on. Thank you, and thank you for coming into this space today. And as a transition, I would like to introduce the work that we have been preparing together with Learning Planet Institute in the last several months, and aim to launch in a very foreseeable future, hopefully in the next few months, together with you. And what's coming now is an invitation. Let's explore how we can make this into something that we can create together. So I'll briefly introduce this idea of Peaceful Futures program, and then let's discuss what is possible. We'll begin with an interactive exercise that Ilia is going to launch after my presentation. So this study that just came out a few weeks ago was already mentioned several times. It's one of the largest studies of what youth needs, the Youth Talks study, where youth around the globe, or about 1 million people, conducted different sessions, discussions of what is most important to them. And results are amazing. They are striking. They show that peace has become #1 priority for most of the young population, active young population around the globe. It's certainly overranking other dimensions for most regions in the globe. There is also concern for environmental pollution, there is concern for human rights, but peace is #1 priority for young generation. And this highlights that young people are both seeing this as a necessity, and they're ready to move and act upon it. And so our hope and our ambition is that we can begin raising a worldwide community of practice that will become a catalyst of peace-based civilization, by means of actually doing the work that many of the panelists and many of the people present in this room are doing, by nurturing young leaders, by enhancing collaborative learning and knowledge creation, by cultivating peace-building civic projects of different kinds, and project ecosystem, because these projects need to be interconnected. And what Art expressed as personal business model need also be supported by collective business model. The way we would like to do it is actually creating 3 elements of the approach, and all of them will be kind of constantly maintain and sort of reinforcing each other. So the first element is a knowledge repository and a kind of course that will deliver best practices, best tools from experts that are present here today and many others that could be here today. Share it with these young people around the world as practical solutions that they could apply for their own well-being and inner peace, for their collective work, for media campaigns they can run, for their future visioning work, and many other things that they can do in their own community. Then the second component is an acceleration space, a kind of a project accelerator with focus on young people's projects, something similar to what Aart is doing in his work. And last element, again, all of them are coming together and sort of reinforcing each other. Last element is actually seeing these projects that will be cultivated by young leaders, not in isolation, but as seeds for regional hubs, so specializing maybe on specific aspects of positive peacemaking, like healing trauma, working with arts, working with and culture, working with regenerative economy and so on, and growing these into a global ecosystem of projects. And in the work that we are conducting, we hope that this will create two types of impact, both direct and indirect. The direct one is the one where these practices of peace are shared through the work of young leaders with their community, especially with leaders, with networks, that then can amplify, do a cascading effect, bringing these practices into their family, into their networks, into their teams, to affect hundreds more people that will get in touch with these practices that some of these leaders will bear. And also indirect impact is a story is one of the most powerful ways to program our future and to change our future. So creating local stories of peaceful futures that are hopeful, where the role of hope is absolutely critical, as was mentioned today. So creating hopeful stories where we can see how this peace starts to prevail in a local village, city, or region. It's possible to actually build up a momentum for the desire for peace through viral campaigns, through conversations with community, through artistic work. So these direct and indirect campaigns or work can together create an impact which leads to local peaceful society. And one of the first things that we want to do as a pilot in the next few months is actually begin by helping young people shape their stories and visions with their community, not alone, but in conversation with their communities, and then help them spread these stories with social media campaigning and more, and identifying projects that they will see themselves as catalytic, as something that will support these learning journeys. So this is our hope, but we also want to make sure that we are not doing something that is kind of just repeating what others doing. We want to support the other people work. So the work of Catalina, Aart, Candice, Mandar, and many others in this room is certainly something that we need to build upon and amplify. One of our questions is what actually needs to happen in a course like this? How can we make it real in a way that is, let's say, most productive? Ilia, I think we are running a kind of small survey which will allow all of our participants to express their ideas about what kind of skills or frameworks should be prioritized to reach peaceful futures through education. What should be brought in a program like this to make sure that we are making peaceful futures real? And we are running a Kahoot, right?
Yes, we'll run a Kahoot because first we want to make it a bit more interesting and accessible because we'll be able to see each other ideas. So I've just sent a message in the chat, so you can go in two options. You can open a new tab in your browser and go kahoot.it, or as well you can take your smartphone and scan the QR code on the top, and I will just a second make sure that you will be able to see that. So while you're connecting, I would be really happy if you could focus.
Either this number, right? So either people enter this number 7017266 into Kahoot.
Exactly.
Or just scan a number, right?
Exactly.
Sorry,
Either you follow the link kahoot.it and you will ask to enter this number. I will repeat it. It's 7017266, or just take your phone and scan the QR code and will automatically should link you. And while you're connecting, or while we're waiting for some people to connect, as Pavel said, try to think what kind of skills or frameworks or something that should be prioritized to have in the peace building education. And we will ask you to think about two things, not one, not three, to choose top two that you kind of thinking about. This is the most crucial. And it can be related to something that you already done with your experience or something that you think should work. It's very open space, and I think importance of creating such program for us is to be really open and listen what's important. So I think we will wait for maybe 60 more seconds max, or at least we'll maybe reach 15, 20 participants. But also I want to say, if you have any issues connecting Kahoot and with your phone or with your laptop, you can always put your ideas in the chat. We will look through all chat messages with Pavel later, and nothing will be lost. And while again people are joining, I also want to say that we have some time and we will have a moment to share what you're doing, to ask the questions. So I'm not ignoring all the questions in the chat. I'm noting them down, and we'll have a chance to come back to them. So as I said, we have 10 seconds left from the 60. And please put in the chat is that you want to join but something is not working. Otherwise, I will proceed to our main activity. So I will suggest that we will start because I don't see any messages. So as you said, what kind of skills or frameworks should be prioritized to reach peaceful futures through education? Education you can think as particular educational programs. It can be K-12 system education, or it can be higher education, continuous learning. Please type your ideas. We'll ask you to put 2 ideas on your screen. We'll have like 3 minutes for that. We see 3 answers already. I see from Clary that conflict resolution skills at early childhood level, which is amazing. And second one, honestly, I cannot relate more. And Clary, maybe you can share your second idea, because I see that conflict resolution skills at early childhood level. And maybe I will share, Pavel, a little story, if it's possible, while we're waiting for some participants to join. And I was working for last 8 years. I'm in conflict resolution and mediation, and I was working with a lot of people. And I was always reflecting back, being as well a university teacher and facilitator of the programs. But have we ever had a chance to really have an opportunity to learn how to build relationships? We all come from very different countries. We all come from very different regions, but we, in general, have very similar system of education. We still study some basic math. We learn how to read. We learn how to understand the formulas in math, physics, geometry. Very different levels, but however, it's always included in classic education. But we never been, or rarely been taught how to build relationships, how to deal with conflict situations. And even though it's something that we face in every day. And that's like something that I cannot skip from the idea from Clary. And I see from Gina inner personal awareness, from Jan anticipatory empathy, capacity to imagine how our world actions and affect others' well-being, emotional intelligence in all aspects, controlling emotions positively. And we have 30 seconds to add your ideas. 25. So if you missed something, it's time to add. What I will also ask you to do later, while maybe somebody will already take the stage, you will have a chance to vote on this idea. So you can see others' idea and put your reaction that you can relate to that or you don't relate to that. You don't have to choose only one or two. You can choose any amount. There is no limitation, and we'll see what happens. So I like these services that now is being more or less sorted with the AI, even though I think it's not perfect. But let's do a little voting. I'm sure we will not be able to go through all the ideas, but at least something that you relate more, something that you relate less. And I really wanted as well to react to what Candice and Catalina was saying about that peace cannot be in one domain. It's also something that I'm reflecting on a lot. Peace can be reachable and feasible and tangible, where we promote these ideas at work, at families, in business, in your company, and all other societal connections that you have. You cannot choose only one place. Okay, school without conflicts, and then you go back to the family, and then there you can act however you want or however society pushes you to think. I found these very beautiful words. So 67 seconds to... Believing in ourselves, community, group is a trustworthy anchor for our present and future. How to listen and dialogue, emotional intelligence. Sharing constructively even when it may hurt. So we have 20 seconds. An environment where you raise your children.
I like this one. Sending difficult messages, but tenderly.
Yes, yes. So the vote is over, and let's see what are the answers. So we have some kind of leadership board. So create collaborative, hopeful stories from Pauline. And listening with more than just ears, intuition and care from Alexander. And empathy-based learning, emotional intelligence from Pavel. I think this kind of the map that is really useful to look how different the skills are, and that you cannot promote peace by teaching something very narrow, very into like niche segment. And I think it's very, very beautiful map that we're gonna refer to co-design the program. And I'll give back the floor to Pavel to cooperate and moderate open mic with the participants. I think it's time to let the people, our dear participants, ask questions, share ideas.
Thank you. Amazing collaborative work. Just a little bit of collaborative exercising. I think we can do so much more. So I would like to open this space and welcome people to share your ideas, your projects perhaps, your suggestions for this program, or maybe questions that you hold for yourself and for us about the feasibility or challenges that we are facing together in this kind of work. And please raise your hand so I'll know that you want to say something. And maybe I'll spotlight one person because I've seen Jan was very active in the chat, suggesting a lot of really interesting ideas. And I know that Jan is doing quite a lot of future-oriented peace-building work across Latin America. So Jan, maybe you could share of your thinking around this. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was on another technology. Am I okay now?
Clearly.
Yes, we can hear
Okay,
you.
thank you. Well, this year, we're launching a big effort to encourage everybody to have more anticipatory empathy. In other words, this capacity to think about how my words, my actions, my projects, programs, policies, my global initiatives will have an impact on others at all levels and in all dimensions, and including the living and the non-living and other types of existences. And this will help us to think more in a more complex way, and it will help us to think in a multi-dimensional way and more globally and interculturally and intergenerationally. So I would just start to add a little bit to what I put in the chat to encourage us to use this concept of anticipatory empathy. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone who feels they would like to share their practice or their question in this space?
Or as well, maybe somebody wants to develop on the card or ideas that they put to the board that we just seen earlier.
Penny, please.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Penny. I'm from Bath University. Lots of comments in the chat about education, and I think all phases of education. I think if we could prioritize those dispositions of humility and compassion and kindness, it would really make a difference. So that's something that I've been working a lot on. And personally, I'll put some links in the chat, but I've been personally inspired by the Othering and Belonging Institute, which I've put the link above, and working alongside Bayo Akamalafe has been totally inspiring. But also I'm very inspired by Joanna Macy's work. I know that a lot of us probably draw on some of her principles as well. I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm interested in Buddhism. So yes, I'll find those links. Lovely to be here.
Thank you, Penny. And Pavel, if I may ask, since you use this opportunity to nominate a person to ask the question, and I noted that Irina asked earlier 2 questions. So Irina, if you maybe could unmute to clarify, because I've seen that your questions raised a discussion and a lot of answers in the chat. But if you could unmute yourself and maybe ask a new question, or...
Yes, thank you. So actually, I am really kind of struggling with this concept of, is it enough for people to have a lot of empathy and to see themselves as connected to everybody else to have peace? Because sometimes there are really situations where like my interest is opposed to that of somebody else. And if the issue is important enough, if it's about, I don't know, access to something that's vital, like water or food or whatever, how can this be solved otherwise than with a conflict? So this is one of my issues. Like, is it actually feasible to not have wars, and to what do we do in situations where really my interest is opposed to that of somebody else? And the other question that I have is, and where that we discussed more in the chat, it's about, I think that like on the long term, yes, maybe most of the wars may have been avoided if everybody had the education in empathy and so sort of emotional skills and so on. But when a war is happening, I think that what we need to stop a war is actually, and I don't know, is it, well, maybe I'll ask it as a question, is it another set of skills? And how do we build peace during war, basically? Yeah, these are the two questions. Thank you.
I think I would go and without raising up my hand. I'm Clary from Nairobi University, Kenya. I think education carries the day, especially at an early childhood level, because when you train a child in the way they should go, even when they grow up, they will never depart from it. That's number one. And in this, they learn how to grow and develop and respecting the environment and people around them, because your personality disorder makes the other person also to have a personality disorder, and this creates anger and people start fighting. So there's no peace. I'm not saying that that there can never be war without peace or peace without war. And again, look at when you look at what is happening, what has been happening and is happening in Gaza and Ukraine, children are undergoing torture, not only the children that are within the war, but the warring zone, but children who are in Kenya, children who are in other areas in the world are affected. And this may create anger in them when you look at the personality development in a human being and child development. They learn to be angry because of what is happening to their fellow children in Gaza or in Ukraine. We see children suffering. What if they are taught on how to manage that crisis at an early childhood level? Because that child, I listened to a participant here, I don't know whether she was a participant, who was talking about her father being killed 30 years ago. There is something in her that we cannot know, but it is innate in her, unless she could tell us how she felt when her father was killed and why was her father killed and what is happening within her life when she was young, because this happens when she was young. So I think we should encourage education at an early childhood level and move with it to all the levels of education up to higher learning. I was in the other meeting where we had Jay presenting to us conflict resolution measures that was very thematic and integrated, and that should be taught at an early childhood level as they leave to higher education. Thank you.
Claire, thank you for highlighting this really important aspect of early childhood education, and thank you to Irina for putting in front of us really provocative questions. And I would encourage people also to join us at the session that comes after this one, where we would like to look into the foundations, actually exactly what you are asking, Irina. And I'm also struggling with this kind of questions. And I think they don't have one simple answer. It's a lifetime journey to come to discovery of these answers, but we need to look into them. And I think our hope that it's possible is part of the answer. But I think it's not a one-off simple response, because it's really one of most fundamental issues that underlie our civilization. So let's explore that in the coming session. I see the hand raised by Jan. And if there's anyone else, please raise your hands also. Yeah, Jan, please.
Just to complement what you're saying, Pavel, this is an area that I have studied for quite a few years and listened to about 200 interviews with Holocaust survivors and looking into so many things that are happening today, we all need to have the highest degree of skills, inner skills and outer skills, for navigating this difficult world, this conflict-ridden world. But we also, I think, need to do a lot more to strengthen the structures, both on the private and public level, to work with people, the survivors, the healers, the first responders who come out of these situations with terrible trauma and post-traumatic stress. So it is a very, very complex reality, as you say, and it is amazing to listen to people who have been raped 30 years ago, and they're just beginning to be able to talk to another human being about it. This is the world we live in.
True.
Pedro, Claire, and then we will have to wrap up our conversation, but we'll surely have more opportunities, dear friends, to continue. But our time is coming to an end. So Pedro, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pavel. I'm Pedro from Colombia, from Fundación Mi Sangre. Catalina excuses herself. She had to get on a plane. But I wanted to propose another set of abilities that I think that they're really important in an education program that's thinking about peace building. And I think this is citizenship. I think that from the experience of Mi Sangre, building conscious of public issues, not only building up the abilities of the individual, but permitting the individual to strengthen a more collective view of public issues and strengthening social fabric is a really important way in order to work prevention of violence and conflict or armed conflict or proposing building peace in the world. Not only because the collective way of understanding issues can build up a more legitimate democracy, but it can make people stand up from authoritarianism, because violence and peace is not only a thing of not having empathy or not having the abilities of resolving peacefully a conflict, but also standing up for inclusion, for diversity, for democracy, and for other issues that are more public, like voting, and seeing that connection between politicians and society today that we see it has been like broken. The politicians are pushing to a way, and citizenship is also pushing to another way, and we have to build up that conscious of citizenship and also about public issues.
Thank you for bringing that up, Pedro. Some people are writing messages to me expressing the concern that there's too much, let's say, balance, emphasis on the inner balance and inner work, but that the collective dimension is somewhat disregarded, and it's equally important. Claire, would you like to make your comment, or?
Yes, I just have one comment, and it is about level of understanding and also level of education, because you will find that those who are well educated really look at matters at hand, and you can sit them down and they get the understanding that we need to resolve and make up with one another. But those that have never gone to school and they have been experiencing war like every now and again, the language they understand is war. Therefore, I pray that we have understanding, and we also teach them through social media, because they learn and read these messages, those who have not attained the higher level of learning. So let education and awareness go across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Dear friends, I feel like we need to wrap up this conversation today, but this is, for me, the opening of our collective journey rather than a closing. And what I come out with is a sense of hope and a sense of urgency, something that Art mentioned before, the sense that we really need to do this work. The work is really complex. Claire, thank you for highlighting so many dimensions of it that need to be taken into consideration. There is a lot of work that needs to happen on a personal level and with these skills that maintain inner well-being and personal relationship dimension, but there's also equally a lot of work that needs to happen in collective space with transformation of our institutions, our economies, what was expressed as business models of peace and perhaps regulations, something that Catalina and Pedro highlighted, the citizenship role and planetizenship as is expressed across this festival, the role of us all being planetizens, recognizing that it's not just a private business, it's also a collective issue that we all need to come together and work for this type of cultural transformation. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for being here today, for maintaining and expressing your thoughts in this conversation, for sharing your wisdom, sharing your ideas, and to make sure we can continue engaging with you in this project. Ilia, we will put... yeah, Claire? Right, I'm not sure that
it wasn't for you, Pavel. Go ahead.
Okay, that wasn't for me. So Ilia is going to put into chat a questionnaire, a very brief one that will make sure that we will keep in touch with you and will try to fit your work and see the ways that we can connect as we move ahead with this initiative. And on our behalf, we would also be very happy to support your initiatives, the work that you are doing, and make sure that we are growing this into a global peacemaking ecosystem for peaceful futures. Thank you, everyone. It's been an exciting 90 minutes, and I hope you come out of this more hopeful than you entered into it, because their challenges are big, but there are also ways of tackling them and creating a cultural shift that is much needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. Before we finish, and before I send everything in the chat, because I know whenever I send the link in the chat, then everybody follows it and the attention stops. I actually will be happy to share 2 links with you. First one is about starting to create the community of practice around peaceful future projects. So please share what experts, organizations, networks, projects should be involved, should be showcased and highlighted. The link is going to be in 2 seconds. And please give us some feedback about this session. It's going to take you not more than 1 minute, but for us it's going to be very meaningful feedback how to improve our assembly meetings. And thanks a lot for the contribution. It was very, very nice to hear and see the stream of ideas, but in the end we all talk about the same language and the same ideas and the same narratives that we're trying to bring. Thanks a lot.